Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining on a weekend with us. So without any further ado, it's 6 p.m. and I think people are still joining us. So let's just start the session. So, so let me begin with hello to everybody. We hope you and your family are keeping safe. And I'm Subhashri, and I welcome all of you to SeriousTech Saturdays by CitiusTech. So those of you who have not attended this before, let me just give you an overview of it. That it's a series of webinars that we conduct on Saturdays, and it is mostly conducted by CitiusTech Tech Gurus on next gen technologies. And in today's webinar, we'll be covering the topic quality assurance in healthcare. So and we have with us Preetu George, head of QA and automation practice in CitiusTech, who will be taking through the topic for us today. So without any further ado, let me hand it over to Preetu. Hi, Preetu.
Hello, thank you, Subhashri, for the quick introduction. And on behalf of SeriousTech, I also welcome all of you all for this session. On a weekend, attending something serious is definitely, it requires a lot of courage, I would say, right? In today's world, a Saturday evening could have been spent watching a Netflix movie or catching up with friends. Not really because of COVID, you don't catch up friends, but still you've got so many other alternatives that you could have done. But you all attending the session just tells me the seriousness that you all have with your career and about your interest in CitiusTech. So I will ensure that I make your these next 30 minutes. I'll not keep it that serious. We'll try and keep it little, make it a little fun. I'll kind of try and ensure that I am, giving you all some insights into CitiusTech, what we do there, plus kind of what you should expect in the QA industry, right? So without further ado, let me share my screen and I'm just going to do that. Okay, Shubhashri, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. So with that, we'll get started, guys. I know there is a presentation. So anyone who is joining SeriousTech should know that SeriousTech, we love presentations because I think that's the best way of communicating or conveying our thoughts, a very structured way of putting together our thoughts. Okay, so that is where we use a lot of our presentations, and that has been one of the key success criterias for us. Okay, having said that, let me quickly introduce myself a little more in detail. I have around 17 plus years of industry experience. Majorly, my forte has been testing. Okay, and majorly into healthcare testing. So I have been with SeriousTech for 14 plus years. Yeah, I mean, I think, and SeriousTech is my second organization, and I don't think I had any reason to even look out for anything else other than being and growing in CitiusTech. So I lead the QA practice at CitiusTech, which means I'm responsible for all the QA that happens in CitiusTech. So it's more like, leading the center of excellence at CitiusTech. And I work very closely with the delivery teams. I work very closely with the sales team. I work very closely with the people on the teams, right? Because I'm responsible for their capability development, their training, upskilling, looking at future growth in QA for CitiusTech, working with with our clients as well to ensure we're giving them value-added services. So that is something, and I have a very strong team with me who helps me drive a lot of this. Okay, I recently did my MBA from Symbiosis, and that also was a part of the SeriousTech corporate education program. So it was in 2019, that's like 2 years back when I did my MBA. So I always make fun, my daughter was in KG and I did my PG, okay, because I don't think there's any age for learning and doing your completing your education. I always wanted to do my MBA, and SeriousTech gave me the opportunity to do that, and I was able to get that done. I have done my HL7 certification. HL7 is a healthcare level 7 certification, which is very prominent in the healthcare industry. Done my CSQA, and I'm sure most of the QA folks out here know what CSQA is, but that was back in 2007-8 that I did it, and I did my Scrum Master certification as well. So with that, I'm going to move on to the next slide, which will give us a quick overview, right? And I know many of you all here have a lot of questions. I think a lot of you all are folks who are planning to join SeriousTech, who've been offered a role of QA or maybe some other role in SeriousTech, right? So with that, the reason we're doing this is so that you get a quick peek into what happens with QA at SeriousTech. Okay, so that is where in the next couple of slides I'll talk to you about it, so that you know what to expect when you join SeriousTech. And obviously we'll talk about the trends and overall what is it that QAs should be looking forward to. How do they ensure that they're keeping themselves abreast with technology? So in SeriousTech, we've got more than 900 QAs. Okay, 1/4 of the revenue comes from QA projects in SeriousTech. Okay, and we've got more than 50 plus automation projects. When I say 50 plus, like we've got more than 100 plus customers or clients that we cater to, of which we've been doing automation for almost 50 plus projects. We follow the healthcare IT industry standards, because when it comes to the healthcare domain, right, and that is another very important factor, right, because in healthcare, testing plays a very, very significant role. Okay, I'm not saying that in the other domains or the other areas it doesn't, but again, with respect to healthcare, when you're testing applications which is impacting man's life, I think it kind of, the criticality or the risk levels are very high compared to that. So I still remember my CEO when he had said, if you have a strip of crocin tablets, right? You cannot say that the error percentage is like, even 10%, because out of 10 tablets, even if one tablet is faulty, it can cost the life of the patient, right? So that's very similar to when it comes to testing in the healthcare industry. There is no way that we can have that room of error for leaving behind, making a mistake with any application, anything that we do. Right. And in SeriousTech, it's not only about functional manual testing, okay, but more of specialized, because in today's world, I think, and most of you would agree, most of you have been there doing that in their current jobs, current roles, current organization, right? Testing is really, really advanced, okay? It's not about just a click, and, navigating from one screen to the other that you need to test. There's a lot of more complications and details involved behind that. So we focus a lot on functional integration and working QA in the agile world. We're trying to shift left with our testing approach. What does that mean? Where we want to start testing early as the requirements phase, right? So having the QAs getting involved right from the requirements phase, doing static reviews. Okay, there's something called a static and dynamic reviews. I'm sure all of you will understand that. Static reviews right from, the requirements, ensuring that the requirements are gathered correctly, because trust me, QAs, I think they get a very holistic view of the application, right? And they start thinking about it in all directions and from the end user perspective. So right from the requirements, right from the design phase, when the APIs are getting created, the microservices are getting created, QAs can start testing. Okay, so that is where we're saying that the testing has shifted left in the cycle, in the SDLC. So that, now today in the world where we've got applications which are widely used, right? So there is a level of globalization testing we do. A lot of focus on automation testing, because that's the key in where today we've got faster releases and faster every day there are releases happening, or if you look at the Netflix and Amazons, right, they've got releases going out every maybe a couple of minutes, right? So you cannot take a long time for doing testing, so obviously your faster release testing cycles have to be incorporated. Performance and security very important, when it comes to healthcare QA. So we have a separate practice in itself for security and performance testing, because we take it very seriously. And again, for us, security and performance is not an afterthought. We cannot think about security after the application is built, but it has to be done right from the design phase when you're thinking about building the product, right? So we, led by my colleague, performance and security testing practice in itself has its own identity in SeriousTech, and we have more than 50, 60 people who work under that area and who are certified, ethical hackers and certified performance testers who help our customers deliver performance and security, in their projects. Interoperability, again, this is something very specific to healthcare because, as I said, health level 7, fire, these are all integration standards, right? Because what is happening in today's world, right? So I have one system, like maybe an electronic medical record, and another provider has another system, right? It's a lab system or whatever, or a pharmacy system, right? So obviously all of these applications have to speak to each other. Now, what is the best way that you can exchange data? Because there has to be some level of standardization, and that is where all of these, data connectivity standardizations come into picture, and you have HL7, Fire, X12. DICOM is something which is very relevant in the medical imaging field, right? Because that is where the DICOM standards are used. So we have a lot of our focus on in that area where a lot of this is also automated. So we obviously do a lot of manual validations on these standards, but imagine validating millions of files and formats of these files, right? So you cannot do it manually. So you got to do it in an automated fashion. A lot of focus on domain, right? So when it comes to the healthcare domain, so healthcare also has multiple domains. So you've got the payer market, which is all about health plans and health insurance. So, we have a lot of customers and clients under that umbrella. We've got the provider market, which has got all the hospitals and the clinics who provide patient care to patients, right? So that's the provider market. We've got the life sciences market, which is all about pharma and the Roche Diagnostics and Johnson and Johnsons of the world, which come under the life sciences market. And then we have the medtech market, which is more to do with medical technology. So all the GEs of the world, all the applications, and you have your X-ray machines and your different devices which are used in hospitals. Obviously, there are softwares which have to be installed on this, right? So medtech focuses a lot on those softwares. So SeriousTech deals only with the software part of it. We do not do any hardware testing of medical devices. Okay, so I'm just letting you know that because I don't want tomorrow you'll come in and say that, hey, I've got to, I might get to test a medical device. We test it, but we test the software part of it. That is what we focus on majorly. And then, now today with cloud technology taking in so much of traction, most of the applications are either being shifted from on-prem to cloud or being built on cloud. So QAs have to have an understanding of that platform. They need to understand what services does the cloud offer. How does the application work seamless when it's on cloud, right? The end user need not know whether it was on-prem or on cloud. So how does that happen? How does the data, work fine when it's on-prem or on cloud, right? So the platform testing and even digital transformation, we have a lot of applications on mobile. So how do I, so, testing those applications on mobile, right? So this is like the breadth of the testing that we do. And obviously, if you go into the depth of each of them, right? So if you go to the depth of automation, performance, security, cloud, interoperability testing, there's many layers that's there within this, which obviously, I'm restricted on time, so I can't get into. But once you are in SeriousTech, you will get to know, and depending upon what client or what project you're working in, you will go through those specific trainings so that you are able to, understand the domain aspect of it first, and then the technical aspect of it. And at the bottom of this slide, we talk about what makes 900 QAs work with the same level of standards, right? So it's important that, and SeriousTech is a CMMI level 3 organization. We've got to ensure that we have standardization. So our process excellence pillar, I would call those as the pillars on which the practice stands and executes, right? So the process excellence is something that we focus on. So we've got, programs like Smart QA, Smart Audits, where we're responsible for training all the QAs on a regular basis. We certify them so that we ensure that they understand this. There are refresher courses that we give them so that they are in line with the latest trends that's happening in the world of testing, right? So that is important. And then capability development is another area, so that what one person is, maybe there's some innovation that someone's done in a project or some best practices being used on one project, sharing that knowledge with the wider audience, and that is something that we encourage. So we have these CitiusTech process documents and recipes that we come up with, which can be shared across the organization. And then the last is the engagement model. Is how we engage with the customer. Is it either we work as a third party vendor where we are just doing the validation, or we are doing managed services for our customers, or we are saying that, hey, we become an extension to the client's Scrum team and we've got our QAs working along with the client, as their team, right? So there are different engagement models that we have. As I said, test automation, a very, very important area, because we know that in today's world everything needs to be automated, right? So whatever I talked about, right, interoperability, cloud or security or performance, right? So all of that, we have our automation frameworks, or we have projects where we've been doing automation for all of this, right? So in SeriousTech, we have an end-to-end performance testing framework, which we have created and which we can easily deploy to any project. We have an automation accelerator. So a standard framework that has been built using, Selenium with Java or .NET or Python. So we've got that framework. So tomorrow we have to kickstart a new project. We have a ready-made framework. All we need to do is leverage that, use that, and start building on top of it, right? So we have a lot of accelerators in SeriousTech, which helps us to deliver value to the customers right at the early stage of the project, right? And now another thing that we are moving into is an outcome-based model of automation, right? Because typically we always engaged with our customers on a T&M based model, right? But I think when it comes to automation, and especially when there is a defined backlog of regression or defined work that needs to be delivered to a customer, outcome based model is one of the best, right? So we've got our accelerators. We have a lot of templates and content that we can leverage, so that we're able to hit the outcomes and add value to the customer, right? So that is something that has been focused on. And then I want to touch about API testing again, right? Because I think that is another very, very important area that has a lot of focus now, because I don't think there's any QA, and I do a lot of interviews and we get a lot of demand from customers asking for QAs, right? So API testing is standard today, right? So I think for all the QAs to understand functionality, doing all the testing, understanding the testing strategies is important, but please ensure that you'll understand how to test APIs, right? And in an automated fashion. I think that's going to be very, very relevant and important moving forward. So that's something that, we take care of. It's a little crowded slide, but, just wanted to give a sense of these are all the tools and technology that we at SeriousTech use across our multiple clients, right? So when we say the frameworks, right? So these are all the frameworks that we are using, automation frameworks we use. For web applications, these are all the tools that we have used across multiple customers. For mobile, these are all the tools that we've used across multiple customers. Desktop, again, because we know the challenges that desktop automation faces, right? So these are the tools like, like a Squish or a Sikuli that is being used. And Tricentis Tosca is another tool that we partnered with. And, because I think that's one of the most strongest tools that we've come across in the recent past, right? And which supports all web, mobile, desktop, API, DB, right? So you will see Tosca kind of coming up everywhere. So that is something that we work on, and technologies, all of these languages. So again, right, one of the message I want to leave with this slide is the versatility that we expect from QAs, right? So we cannot have a QA come and say that, hey, I'm a Selenium Java guy, and that's all that I want to do in my career. You ask me to move to doing Selenium Python, and I'm not going to pick it up. And that's not something what the future sees, right? Because with the changing technology landscape, picking it up and ensuring that we are able to perform and use that in our projects is very relevant, right? So upskilling and cross-skilling is very, very important, right? So that is where I wanted to give this snapshot, and I strongly believe that if you know one tool, right, and one language, learning any other tool or any other language is absolutely cakewalk. All you need to do is maybe a 2 weeks session or a course or a training where you need to understand, okay, what are the controls, what are the features, what are the methods or the framework part of it, understand that, and coding logic, you've already got it, so you don't need to worry about it, right? So but just being and then and even right leveraging all these test case management tools, right? So if you use one of them, if you use an ALM, then a Jira or a the TFS or an Azure DevOps should not become a challenge, because pretty much the underlying factor for all of these tools are pretty similar. If I know how to use one repository, I should know how to use the others, right? Then CI/CD is another very, very important thing, because as I said, right, we want to look at continuous integration, continuous testing. So that is where integrating your automation framework or automation scripts into the CI pipeline is going to be very relevant and very important for us to pick up. Okay. Now, what are the trends that we see in QA? Okay, so as I just talked about, right, dev test ops or QA ops, right? So today DevOps has a lot of traction, right? And we see that coming up everywhere. But if your DevOps is not QA'd well, so you've got your applications and you're building your application pipeline, code pipelines, and checking out and going into production within minutes. But if that code is not tested and it's not getting into production without testing, there is zero value to it, right? It has to be tested. But obviously, we cannot have it, right? You know what? The code gets deployed automatically, it's in the environment, and now we have to manually sit and spend like hours trying to validate that. But no, it defeats the purpose of DevOps. So all of this, is where your entire testing, your automation test suite getting integrated into the pipeline is very important, and that is the reason. And I think if you look at most of the tools that come today, like the automation tools, they have the capability of integrating with the CI pipelines, right? So understanding that, right? So guys, one of the things that all of y'all need to be well versed with, how do you integrate your automation suites in the CI pipeline, right? Codeless automation, right? So, and I think you all must have heard about a lot of tools like, as I said, Tosca, Catalan, right? We can use a lot of the RPA tools, right? So that's robotic process automation, and there is definitely a difference between automation testing and RPA, but definitely a lot of a thin line between, or the similarities between that. And there is a post that SeriousTech had published on the similarities and differences between RPA and automation testing. It's on my LinkedIn profile. You all can definitely go and take a look at it, right? So leveraging these codeless automation tools in your project, right? Because while tools like Selenium have been in the market and they've been so strong, obviously a lot of traction in codeless automation, because we want non-technical people as well to start doing automation, right? Because where you don't have to write methods and talk about libraries and add-ins and everything. You've got the framework already. You've got all this. It's a more of a drag and drop or record and playback. But again, that doesn't mean that I need to have zero scripting or zero logical skills, right? So that definitely still matters, but it makes life easy with respect to automation. And the last on the QA trends is the AI ML in testing, right? So because again, today, I'm sure all of you all are aware of the buzzwords, and everyone's looking for courses in data science and Python so that they can catch the train on AI ML, right? And that is something that can definitely be leveraged in testing, right? And how, right? Making your testing intelligent, right? So imagine today's world, regression testing poses the biggest challenge, right? Because you've got huge regression suites, and imagine for every release, if I had to run that huge regression suite, it's impossible, right? It's kind of so time consuming. So imagine if I had leveraged the power of AI, I looked at all the the code changes that the developers have done it, and automatically it was able to predict, okay, what will be the regression suite that should be executed. So I am getting rid of the manual impact analysis process, right? I can look at code changes, and obviously there has to be a traceability matrix that is there. Imagine I have a traceability matrix. I know that for this pieces of libraries or files that the code is there, right? These are the changes, and then this is what is the impact to my application, and for those set of changes or impact, these are the set of test cases which need to be picked up. Your boom, your impact analysis and regression test suite gets created, and you're just focusing on the most important test cases. Self-healing mechanisms, right? So because today changing objects has always been the challenge with automation testing. So imagine you have tools like Helenium, which are self-healing, which has got those mechanism to automatically go and make those changes to those elements, provided there are certain attributes or certain properties which are very similar, right? So it kind of intelligently realizes that the object has not changed, it's just the property that has changed, and I would really go back and change the property in the code, right? So there are tools like this, Mabel, testtime.io, a lot of these tools which are powered by AI ML and leveraging that in our testing. Moving on to the QA trends in healthcare, I did talk about interoperability testing. So once you're in SeriousTech, and if you have a project which deals a lot with interoperability, getting an HL7 or a FIRE certification will be very, very important, right? A lot of testing with respect to claims, right? Because healthcare insurance and claims, right? So there are EDI files that we'll need to validate. So understanding the format of these files, understanding the format of HL7, FIRE, what they are, the FIRE APIs, right? So you get to learn a lot of that because that is important when it comes to testing. Computer system validation, and I'm sure many of you all have heard it, many not heard it, but when we are testing regulated devices, right, there is the testing process is called as computer system validation, right? Because as I said, medical devices like an X-ray machine, right? If there's a software which is interacting with the X-ray machine and which is very, very life critical, right? So there are certain, you have to have FDA compliance, you have to follow certain protocols, which is called as your DQ, which is design qualification, installation qualification, operational qualification, and performance qualification. So these are protocols that have to be followed when you're doing your testing of regulated medical devices, okay, so or regulated systems for that matter, right? So that is another area that SeriousTech focuses, and a lot to do in the life sciences market. Okay, so that is another very specifically to healthcare that we do in SeriousTech. The domain knowledge plays a very important role because it's very important that you understand the domain that you are in, right? So because if you're in a banking domain, understanding the those terms and tech terminologies and keywords is important. Similarly in healthcare, right? The revenue cycle management, how does it work, what are health plans, what is a co-payment, what is an insurance, what is your all those factors, all those key understanding those concepts is important, because of which then you can develop your scenarios for testing, your test data that is required for testing, because that's another area, right? If you don't know the domain, building your scenarios and building your test data becomes very challenging, right? So that is very, very important, and there's a lot of focus in that, at SeriousTech. And now IoT, nothing new to any of y'all. So it's more of IoT in the medical space, right? So it's like Internet of Medical Things, right? So today, and especially COVID, with COVID, his striking in telemedicines have picked up, right? Where patients sit at home and provide data, because there are again devices which you can monitor at home, and you can put it up on your applications. There are these apps where you just need to your medical devices or your BP machines or your glucometers are connected, and the results get uploaded onto the app and the doctor sees it, right? How is that possible? That's definitely IOMT, right? So data connectivity, network connectivity, access, security, performance, and automating all of that, right, in this space is very, very important. So someone who understands this entire concept and is able to test that, right? So that is another area that SeriousTech would be, we've got projects in SeriousTech which focuses on that. Okay. And the last slide, this is my last slide, and I know we've got 2 minutes to end the session, right? And I'll take questions after that, if you are okay staying on. These are some of the trainings that I've highlighted that if you are in SeriousTech, you would, get access to, right? And I've just kind of bifurcated that, right? So in automation testing, as I said, Selenium, very basic. You will be able to get through these trainings. Mobile automation, Squish, very, very, it's catching a lot of prominence in the space of desktop automation. So Protractor, another, because with all your Angular technology coming in, Protractor is catching a lot of traction. And design patterns, right? So I'll take some time trying to tell you why we came up with a course on design patterns, because we realized that automation testing is no less than writing good code, right? And how do you write good code for automation? Because it's just not about going and writing a line of code to go and click a button on the UI or test an API, but ensuring it's optimized, ensuring it is following certain standards, right? So that you're following those levels. So the design patterns, what is applied in your development coding, can be applied for automation, because at the end of it, automation testing is nothing but coding, right? So applying those design patterns in automation. So we have a course on that. Dev test off, so understanding the source code control tools, right? Understanding CI integration, Docker, Kubernetes. So we have training courses for all of that. API testing, again, very, very important. So we've got courses for training people on Postman, SOAP UI, Rest Assured, or even Ready API, which I don't have it here, but we've got projects using Ready API. Again, any QA needs to understand the basics of SQL, because I think that is very, very normal to be applied, right? So giving them training on SQL testing, SQL, basics of SQL plus ETL testing, because with a lot of these data warehousing projects coming into picture, so ETL testing plays an important role. And cloud, as I said, so AWS is it's not that QAs need not be a part of it, right? So we have to understand those services, understand the infrastructure. So understanding that is very important, so that we can accordingly build out scenarios when we are testing applications on cloud. And when it comes to performance, so JMeter, NeoLoad, a couple of tools that we use, Load Runner, but we've got training courses for that as well. And something that we also have is something called a smart QA, right? Because today, when we talk about full stack developers, there is also a concept of a full stack QA. We are expecting QAs to play that, they'll be doing the manual testing, they will write automation, they will do a little bit of performance testing, and as well as the basics of security testing, right? And I'm not saying that you get to the depth of security and you need to hack the system, but there are certain simple security testing controls that need to be validated, and that can be validated by a functional QA as well, right? Now, what are those concepts? So that is something that we teach. Performance testing. How could I do performance testing with the minimal resources that we have on the application, right? Maybe checking your server side statistics, just checking out, maybe a stopwatch testing for that matter. But what are the parameters that you need to look at, right? Just giving that knowledge itself makes testing much more uh, efficient in the area of performance testing, right? The basics of automation testing, right? So, what are the areas that we can automate? What are the areas that you should pick up for automation? What does a basic automation framework look like, right? So all of that training given to all the QAs, right? So that they understand this four areas very well: manual, automation, performance, security, because that's what it is. And then automating it, tools within that, domain aspect of it, the platform aspect of it is, you do all of these testings on these different platforms, right? So that is where we have this concept of smart QA, where we train all the QAs across all these areas, at least with the basics. So that is what you expect when you are in SeriousTech with respect to trainings. And I think with that, I am ending my slide. I know we're 3 minutes apart, but thank you so much. This is what I had today as a part of my, session for all of y'all, and I'm hoping that it was enlightening and y'all didn't have to waste your Saturday. Y'all didn't feel that y'all wasted your Saturday.
Wow, Ritu, that was like an enlightening session, and you did. It was like, I think everybody with us would agree here that you did make a good use of their Saturday, because this was like a quick crash course of anything and everything to do about QA. So I think it was very. I hope everybody has found this session to be useful.
Thank you so much. It was really nice, and I hope you'll have a great weekend and stay safe. And thanks for attending once again.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much, everyone. Really appreciate it. Bye bye. Take care and good weekend. Thank you so much, Subhashri, for this.
Yeah, no problem. Bye.